What's up YouTube, Mr. Llama here, and today I want to go over hero traits in the Blacksail season of Torchlight Infinite. We have, of course, Rehan, Gemma, Carino, Youga, Moto, all now with the 2 traits. We have Oracle Thea, who is a slightly newer hero, and then the most recent hero is Erika, of course. And so we'll talk about those as well, because they just have the single hero traits. But all the others have the second trait. So we will go ahead and start with Lethal Flash right here. This is the Carino hero trait, season 2-1 right here, the second trait. And what's really cool about hero traits, I guess I should just go over that overall, is that they really change the way that you play a certain hero. So of course there's all the combinations that you're going to have with all the different skills within the build, all the different talents, all of the different packs, everything that you're changing within it, which we've talked about before in that deep dive video. I can put a link in the description for that. But to focus really in on this piece, this is a pretty build defining piece, since this really is where a lot of your damage, a lot of your play style will come from, is from the hero trait itself. So with Lethal Flash right here, the big change from Ranger of Glory is that that was more about movement speed and having special ammo and the magic shot. And this is a lot more kind of about like a shotgun. So you'll see after reloading, you gain additional damage for 2 seconds and projectile quantity +2. And then if we dive into the trait details, we can see you're always auto reloading, minus the reload time, reload 2 at a time when using mobility skills, and they gain a shotgun effect. So that's the first piece. Within the second area here, you're going to have, or at level 32, you're going to have either precise hit or dart shot. I prefer dart shot. So for each of these, by the way, I'm going to give my preference as well. So I'll just let you guys know. But both of these ones are at least decent. Precise hit, 20% additional damage for 6 seconds if the projectile skill hits the same enemy at least 6 times within 1 second. And then 10% with the same thing at least 10 times. But Dart Shot has minus 15% mobility skill cooldown each time a projectile hits an enemy, and 20% additional damage for 2 seconds after using mobility skills. So this is generally what we see a lot of people using. I think the minus 15% mobility skill cooldown each time a projectile hits an enemy is just something that people really like. So that just kind of works out better. Into the Deadland, reload 2 ammo when using non-shelled mobility skills. A lot of reloading here. And then 8% additional damage for 2 seconds for each mobility skill used. So again, the idea is you're using a ton of mobility skills, reloading a lot, you know, getting the cooldowns dropped for the projectiles, and then you're using these slow projectiles. And this also has to do kind of a little bit with the projectile angles right here, spreading angle, max projectile, spreading angle, all of that. Moving over here, Evil Ouroboros, that's how I'm going to say it, is generally what I would prefer as well. Normal projectiles will return after reaching their max range and will hit enemies on their path again. Horizontal projectiles always penetrate targets. This is just really, really nice because, of course, you get the out and back. Lethal interval. Your normal projectiles become a volley of shots and they spread after 4 meters. Projectiles plus 80% additional damage when spreading. This just really doesn't get used very much. You can test it out and stuff, but really you're seeing a lot of people playing a Sparkle build and playing with Dart Shot, Evil Ouroboros, and Desperate Measure, which we'll go over here in 1 second. Overheating, +1 projectile spreading angle, and 2% additional damage for each ammo consumed recently. Stacks up to 18 times. Reload 2 ammo and reset the angle when using the mobility skills, and 120 degrees max projectile spreading angle. So it's okay, but you really are probably going to want to prefer this. No longer reloads when you use mobility skills. Minus 25% additional projectile damage. but your projectile skills will consume all ammo and 40% additional damage for every 1 ammo consumed. So like I said, this with the sparkle build, you're essentially shooting and all of it is going and staying on the target because it's going back and it slows down thanks to sparkle. It's pretty nasty. So generally, like I say, I prefer Dart Shot, Evil Ouroboros, and Desperate Measure for this character. Overall, I'll go ahead and give a character ranking as well. I do think Lethal Flash is medium of a build. I feel like you really don't get to be as creative with all of the different builds that you're doing, at least from what I've seen and what I've tested. I don't feel like I've been able to expand and really try a large variety of skills and builds. I feel like I've really had to be, like I say, a little less creative. I feel like other characters, sometimes I get more options than this one. But with him and this one specific build, I do think he's actually pretty fun and pretty decent. But he does not play like you kind of expect a ranger hero to play. So if you're expecting to kind of really stay away and just be this ranger shooting from afar or anything like that, that's not really how you're playing him now. You're really kind of dashing in close and using, like I say, a lot of the mobility skills and shooting all at once, kind of in this like really up close shotgun format. So that is Lethal Flash. Moving on, let us go to Frostbitten Heart. This is Frostfire Gemma. I, of course, played this character, not the Frostbitten Heart hero trait, but the Icefire Fusion, which was her initial trait there, through for my kind of like big playthrough of Season 2. So I have a special love for Frostfire Gemma. I think she definitely does decent, though I do think Frostbitten Heart is maybe a little bit weaker right now. So the big changes right here is Icefire Fusion was about your fusion energy and increasing that. Frostbitten Heart is really about this cold pulse, and so they kind of like this pulse spreading, and it is about that, and Frostbite as well. So you're trying to kind of increase your frostbite and all of that. So Frost Field is going to give you fire skills no longer grant fire energy. Max cold energy is reduced to 1. Cold Pulse inflicts frostbite on target with 50 frostbites. And then 6% cold damage against frostbitten enemies. That's a ton of cold damage. And Cold Pulse also gains a support skill slot. So then you can slot something into there for that. Between Frost Bloodline and Frost Heart, you're pretty much always going to want Frost Bloodline. 1% additional damage to an enemy for every 5 points of Frostbite rating. Again, you're just going to be stacking the Frostbite up on these just enemies really quickly. So this is just going to be super nice. Plus 100% Cold Pulse cooldown recovery speed. Whereas Frost Heart, 45% chance to gain Frost Restoration, which if you look over is just like life and mana and energy shield recharge. When it hits a frostbitten enemy, and it can just stack up, and it's just a little bit more of like a survival one, but really nobody's running that. Pretty much everybody's running Frost Bloodline. Frost Tides, Cold Pulse deals damage as it spreads and returns, gains 1 support skill slot, max frostbite rating of bosses plus 50 points. Which is really nice, right? So just more that you can stack right there. Frost Tides is really nice to get. On your 62 slot, you're generally going to be running Bone Piercing Frost and then Frost Embrace. Again, this is getting minus Elemental Resist per 12 Frostbites on enemy, minus 2% Cold Resist per 12 Frostbites on enemy. So you're really just slamming through their resistances for all the Frostbites, which you're stacking really quickly. As opposed to Frostbite Casket, when you take fatal damage, you freeze yourself. When you're frozen, it triggers a Cold Pulse, and then you just gain, again, that Frost Restoration. So this is really, if you're just playing like full survival, you can run Frost Heart, you can run Frostbite Casket, and then you could run like Icebound Blade, which is increasing, the Frost Restoration effect. So generally, if you're running like Frostbite Casket, you'll run Icebound Blade with it a little bit. And so it's really just all about this, like, getting your energy shield, having your frost restoration, and really just kind of regenning and staying alive. It's okay, but I prefer Frost Embrace, which is max frostbite rating +5 for enemies recently hit by Cold Pulse, and when it hits an enemy recently, plus 1% Cold Pulse cooldown recovery speed for every 6 frostbites, which again, we are stacking. So again, Frost Bloodline, Bone Piercing Frost, and Frost Embrace is my recommendation. But if you want a little more survivability, you can have some fun with Frostbite Casket and Icebound Blade and probably make some like really tanky builds in that way. So that is the Frostbitten Heart build right there. Now, moving over to Rehan right here. This is, of course, your melee Berserker class. Seething Silhouette. The big change here is you have this Seething Spirit, which we'll see right here, that appears at an interval of 1 second. And Seething Spirit has a chance to appear when the player is hit, while Berserk is not active. Seething Spirit has a chance to appear when you use a melee skill, while Berserk is active, and 1% chance for Seething Spirit to appear for every 2 points of rage you have. So it's nice right there. In your 32 skill, you have max rage +50 for rage accumulation, and Seething Spirit is triggered upon taking damage, comes with additional physical damage equal to 100% of the damage. So it's okay. I've used it a little bit and it was all right, but 1% chance to deal double damage every 6 points of rage you have, I think is just too good to pass up. So I think Rampant Emotions is really going to be your better 32 skill, especially as you start to get a little bit higher level, really get your damage up and get the rage points increasing. But maybe you start with Rage Accumulation and then Rampant Emotions is what you switch over to later on. Growing Anger. After Seething Spirit deals double damage, Seething Spirit triggered subsequently will launch an additional attack. 50% additional Seething Spirit damage, and minus 0.4 second Seething Spirit appearing interval. Just nice right there. Boiling Anger. Gain 7 points of rage if Seething Spirit uses a skill while Berserk, this is funny right there, is not active. And minus 0.4 second Seething Spirit interval again with it. I don't like it near as much as Hysteria, which is 4% additional damage per 20 points of rage gained recently. Stacks up to 20 times. That's huge. 4% additional damage for Seething Spirit for every 20 points of rage consumed recently. And that also stacks up to 20 times. Hysteria is just like way too strong. I think going for Boiling Anger is just not really that great. Yeah, this is what I would always recommend. And lastly, Rage Infusion. Enter Berserk automatically at max rage, plus 10 rage consumption of melee attack skills while Berserk is active. Rage will no longer be naturally consumed while Berserk is active, and 10 rage gained when using melee attack skills when Berserk is not active. I think this as well is 100% what you should choose. I think it's decent, but I think more so this is just not great. Split form. No longer gain rage when taking damage, so you lose that benefit. Taking damage reduces rage instead. Each point of rage can only compensate for damage equal to 0.5% of the sum of max life and max energy shield. All max resistances are fixed at 60%, plus 2% additional max life per 10% resistance exceeding max resistance for all resistance. So this really is going for, I guess, some big life, whatever it is. Yeah, Rage Infusion is just the way to go, 100%. So again, I'm running Rampant Emotion, Hysteria, and Rage Infusion. You can run Rage Accumulation, I would say, earlier, but I would switch over to Rampant Emotions as you kind of get higher leveled. That would be my recommendation for Berserker Rehan Seething Silhouette. Now, moving over to Commander Moto. We have using or triggering summon skills grants your minions overload for 3 seconds and has a 9-second cooldown. Overload grants 25% attack speed and cast speed. So this is what overload does. It buffs your minions, essentially. The change here that we're really getting when we come over here is you have all of these self-destructing minions. So you have synthetic troop minions that will initiate a self-destruct protocol when they lose overload, right? So when they lose that buff, they go and they charge forward and self-destruct on the enemies. And these ones are not counted in your minion quantity. Then for your level 32, you have 80% overload effect. Add 10% secondary physical damage dealt by synthetic troop minions while overload is active to the self-destruct damage dealt by the self-destruct protocol. Or quick battle, which is what I prefer. 40% additional overload cooldown recovery speed. Synthetic troop minions initiate self-destruct protocol upon gaining overload. So they're just going to be running off and blowing up, faster right there. Adds base physical damage equal to 16% of the sum of the synthetic troops minions max life and energy shield to the self-destruction, which is a little extra. And all synthetic troop minions will gain overload within 5 seconds after gauge points consumed inflicts overload. It's a lot of words. This is one of the, you just gotta bear with me on this character. It's a little confusing to just talk through. You have to play it really and you just have to play it more to understand it. Synthetic troop skill summons one additional synthetic troop minion, so that's just nice. Plus 2.5% chance for it to drop a mechanical part per level of the skill that summoned it. Mechanical parts last 10 seconds. And when you're within 6 meters, that's what nearby is, you'll pick up or collect the mechanical parts, and your hero gauge cooldown is minus 0.5 seconds when a part is picked up. Now, moving over here, Team Assault summons one additional minion for every time you collect 2 mechanical parts and use the synthetic troop skill recently. That's just kind of okay. Every time the synthetic troop minion hits the enemy recently, the enemy will take additional damage by 1% of the self-destruct damage triggered by the self-destruct protocol. I much prefer guerrilla tactics, which is if the main skill is a synthetic troop skill, it will be automatically triggered when a mechanical part is picked up. So just much nicer, and you just have that on your main skill right there. For each mechanical part collected, it deals 4% additional damage for 8 seconds and stacks up to 15 times. And for each mechanical part collected, self-destruct triggered, blah, 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 expands the skill area by 5% for 8 seconds and stacks up to 15 times. I think this is just a lot stronger. I would highly recommend guerrilla tactics pretty much every single time right there. So I'm saying go quick battle into guerrilla tactics every time. In terms of the level 80, I think both traits are workable. I prefer meaningful death, but fuel war with war is also okay. So we'll look at that. 20% chance for synthetic troop minions to drop a mechanical part when defeating an enemy or hitting an elite. This can just be a nice way to get the parts, which is, I think, really what's great about it. 5% overload effect for every mechanical part recently picked up. So again, we're really just diving heavy into these mechanical parts. And for every 2% overload effect, self-destruct triggered by the self-destruct protocol deals 1% additional damage. Just a little extra there. Fuel war with war. Collecting parts will no longer reduce the cooldown of hero gauge. Mechanical parts can now be stored, and you can store up to 12 mechanical parts. When the self-destruct triggered by the self-destruct protocol deals double damage, consume 2 parts to summon a troop minion of the same type with overload, and 3% additional damage for the next 2 seconds. So it kind of, again, it changes up how you're playing the build, as now you're kind of storing these parts, and then you consume them when they go and do the double damage. I don't prefer it as much. I think you can just run around with meaningful death, and guerrilla tactics right here, get a ton of your parts, blow them up right there. It's a little bit nicer. So that is my recommendations for the new charge calling Commander Moto. And I guess now we can dive into, let's see, because I did Rehan. So now we can dive into Thea. So again, this is a newer hero, so she only has 1 hero trait right now, but we can discuss her hero trait. And her functionality, again, another slightly confusing character, but you gain Focus Blessing, Agility Blessing, and Tenacity Blessing. If you've played through the game, you'll understand these blessings and what they do, essentially. But you can just read, of course. Every stat grants 4% chance to deal double damage. That's Focus. Every stat grants 6% attack speed, cast speed, and movement speed. And every stat grants additional 4% damage reduction. So they're pretty basic. You're just gathering up these stats. And then you can click the hero gauge to cast Divine Punishment, which consumes all of the blessings and deals damage equal to all of this, right? If you want to read through all that stuff. So 5% additional damage for each stack of Focus Blessing that Divine Punishment consumes recently, up to 25%. When you get to level 32, we have Predicted Harvest and Predicted Judgment. I like Predicted Harvest. That's going to be my choice right there. Pretty much every time. 50% chance to gain an additional stack of Focus Blessing when Tenacity, Agility, or Focus Blessing is gained. And if your Divine Punishment consumes max stacks of Focus Blessing, the chances for the main skill to deal double damage is doubled within 4 seconds. I feel like with Thea, you really want to focus on just producing a lot of Focus Blessings. You're just like maxing your Focus Blessings. This is really going to be the focus of this build. Focus of this character, I would say. Predicted Judgment, if your Divine Punishment consumes max stacks of Focus Blessing, minus 15% additional damage dealt by enemies within Divine Punishment's radius. Again, it kind of is a little long to build up to. Recently hit by Divine Punishment, take 20% additional damage. I think you really just want to run around here and just kind of gain more blessings faster. And then you can really just unleash them faster and do a ton of damage. Automatically try to use Divine Punishment when you deal double damage. This is Predicted Reincarnation. Regains 2 stacks of Focus Blessing consumed per enemy hit by Divine Punishment, which is really nice because, again, we want to focus on getting our Focus Blessing up. And 4% additional damage per stack of Focus Blessing regained recently. Really nice. Predicted Hope, 35% additional cooldown recovery speed for Divine Punishment, and 50% damage for the next main skill when using Divine Punishment for every stack of Blessing Divine Punishment consumed recently, up to 1,250%. I prefer Predicted Sacrifice because if Divine Punishment consumes max stacks of Focus Blessing, gains Tenacity and Agility Blessing equal to half the consumed stacks of Focus Blessing. 40% additional damage if Divine Punishment consumes max stacks of Focus Blessing recently. So again, 40% additional damage is huge here, and all it takes is you need to have max stack of Focus Blessing, which you're going to do with this character and with the builds that you're going to run. So again, Predicted Sacrifice, really going to be strong. And this is just for the next main skill. So it's not quite as good. Predicted Hope is still not bad, though. I think it's definitely not bad at all. But Predicted Sacrifice, I still say, wins out. And lastly, at level 80, Farewell Prophecy. If Divine Punishment consumes max stacks of Focus Blessing, send down Divine Punishment immediately. When dealing double damage to enemies recently hit by Divine Punishment, there's an 8% chance to quadruple damage per stack of Focus Blessing owned. And of course, if we're maxing Focus Blessing stacks, this is the way to go. All of this will just work so nicely. Predicted Harvest, Predicted Sacrifice, Farewell Prophecy. It just plays so well together. Predicted Justice. The increase-decrease on Agility's Blessing max stacks are also applied to Focus, and same with Tenacity Blessings. Again, we're not trying to build those up. We're trying to build our Focus Blessing up. So if for some reason you do run a different build that really tries to build, all of them and is focusing on building Agility and Tenacity and Focus, then all of this might be better there. But I think it very much, all the top players agree that Farewell Prophecy is really the way to go here and really focus on your Focus Blessings. So that takes care of Oracle Thea. And lastly, in the season pass. She will move out of the season pass, of course, next season. And then you can just get her with the tokens in game there. But Wind Stalker, this is Cat Eye Erika right here. So she is a really fun character because she is a movement character, and you're really focusing on the multi-strike and stalker kind of building up and just moving around very quickly and hitting a lot, right? So you can see you gain Cat's agility for 10 seconds after making 6 meters of movement. And while you have Cat's agility, you gain movement speed. And then 200% of the decrease in movement speed is also applied to attack damage. So that's just a fun little piece. Now, I would say Erika has probably the most variance in how you're choosing her traits. I'm seeing a lot of people choosing a lot of things. I was still kind of uncertain and bouncing back and forth between different hero traits. So I would say she's one that I feel has still a lot of potential and maybe just a lot to be figured out with. Hot Pursuit, 200% multi-strike chance during Cat's agility. And again, multi-strike is just chance to perform an additional attack. And if the chance exceeds 100%, one additional attack will be performed with every 100% of the chance. And then you gain attack speed, all of this, but it can be interrupted. You gain 1 stack of Stalker, which is multi-strike deals 20% more damage for each strike, for each stack of Stalker you have. And every 2 meters of movement during Cat's agility, for every 2, sorry. So you gain Stalker for every 2 movement. Up to 2 stacks of Stalker. Multi-strike deals additional damage with each strike. And when it ends, you lose Cat's agility and all Stalker stacks. Now, Have Fun and Interest, I think, are both great in different ways. I prefer Have Fun. 3% attack speed for every 1 meter of movement made recently during multi-strike. And 6% additional attack speed during multi-strike for every 1 stack of Stalker you have. I think this is a little better. Interest is still great, though. Extends Cat's agility's duration by 1.5 seconds when Stalker is gained. And 10% movement speed for every 1 stack of Stalker you have. So you get a little bit more of the movement with this, but I feel like you get a little more damage from Have Fun. Cat's Punches. Max Stalker stacks +1. Each multi-strike deal 10% more damage for each 1 stack of Stalker that you have. So just very nice, right? You just get a little bit extra damage there for the Stalker, and you just get more Stalker stacks. Stacker stocks. Catwalk, I think, is really nice. I think this is where I would probably go. Because your multi-strike count will not be interrupted during Cat's agility. So not having that interrupted is super nice, because if it's interrupted, then you lose it, right? And no longer loses Stalker after multi-strike ends. Stalker lasts for 3 seconds. So again, something that is also very nice. I think this helps the character kind of continue around and be able to move around a little more. Cat Dive, though, is okay. During multi-strike, there's a 1% chance for this attack to deal damage equal to the max multi-strike count for every 5% movement speed you have. +1 to maximum multi-strike count for every 1 stack of Stalker you have. Again, I would like to take both of these traits if I really could. I lean towards Catwalk, but that's just me. And then lastly, on the level 80 talent, Cat Scratch. Every 1 stack of Stalker, 2% additional attack speed for 3 seconds when the max multi-strike count is reached. And 10% additional attack speed for each attack during multi-strike until multi-strike ends. This is okay, but Cat's Vision is too good. During Cat's agility, max Stalker stacks +1 upon reaching the max multi-strike count, up to +3 until Cat's agility ends. I think you just have to go with Cat's Vision. Yeah, again, you max Stalker stacks +1 upon reaching max multi-strike count, up to +3. So really, just being able to increase those stacks is just going to do so much. And yeah, so my build is Have Fun, Catwalk, Cat's Vision. I think you could totally run Interest, Cat Dive, and Cat's Vision. have fun cat dive and cat's vision, probably more like that. I feel like interest, you're still probably running with like catwalk or something, but you could really mix and match these. Yeah. So I think Erika is a very fun, very interesting character. I really appreciate them for bringing this character into the game because I think it changes up. It's very different from how you're feeling with other builds, and it's not really a class that I feel like I've seen before. So, you know, a lot of times when you play a new game, you feel like, okay, well, you know, I've played this character before in another game, right? It's your typical ranger, it's your typical barbarian. He spins around, he has his whirlwind, he has his melee, whatever. Cat Eye Erika is very, very unique in how she plays and her style. All of her stuff is really built. She's kind of maybe got the assassin style to her. But the way that you're kind of building with movement and with your multi-strike charges and your stalker charges, it's really fun. It really is, it plays into this fun kind of theme overall of the cat, right? Which I think is just super funny. So, overall, those are my Season 2 hero trait, everything dive. For all of that, I hope that this was helpful. I hope you guys enjoyed and got some value out of that. Maybe this gave you some ideas for how you want to build your hero traits. The last thing that I will always say is when you have your build, always go to the test dummy and test it out and bounce around with the different traits. I think that's always so important because no matter what, you could sit there and think you have the best hero traits and then you go and change it and all of a sudden you're hitting for, twice as much DPS as you were before. And you're like, I really wish I'd tested that before. So always go and play around. But I think, how I really play each of those characters and what I think of each of the traits is decent, at least for all the builds that I was playing. So, yeah. Anyways, don't forget to like and subscribe, YouTube, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace, everybody.